Hello, all you fine Casper folk. I hope you enjoyed your weekend. This is the first time I've uploaded any sort of voiceover or video content, so the quality is going to be very subpar. I apologize up front for that, but this is an issue that I'm very passionate about. I think it's really important. I would normally just do a status update for something like this, but this is a pretty complex, convoluted issue that goes back a long time, and I didn't feel like a status update would do it justice. So I put together this quick little slideshow. I'll try to keep it really quick, so I apologize. I'm going to talk fast and stuff, but I want to make it easily accessible and easy to get through because it's kind of a time-sensitive matter. So if you've been following this issue, this is the Plains Furniture Building downtown. This is on the corner of David and Midwest. The old fire station is right here. It was converted into office space some time ago. This is another picture from a different angle after they removed the facade. City Council purchased this property, and the rest of it you can't see it. I'll show you an overhead view later. But City Council purchased property on this block for $3 million back in 2016. Charlie Powell, the mayor, did a really good job at the October 15th City Council meeting, kind of giving context to the decision to buy the land. I'll add a link so you can watch it yourself, so you don't have to take my word for it. But they bought a lot of property on this block for $3 million. It was appraised at the time for $2.7 million, so they overpaid for the property the day they bought it, which might be important to note later on. But afterwards, about a month later, they started getting into the Plains furniture structure and realized that it had been built over the garage bay of the original fire station #1 down here. So they uncovered this municipal garage, which was attached to fire station #1, and I believe since that time, the owners of the fire station traded some property behind the fire station that's now city in order to have the municipal garage. I don't know if they plan on kind of remodeling it to fit the fire station, but so I believe that's privately owned, and they traded for some land behind this in exchange for it. But they also found the Nolan Chevrolet under the Plains Furniture building, so it's an old brick car dealership from the 20s. So they found these things, and that held up the whole process. Historic preservation and all these things. You got to get people in there and identify what we're looking at and what sort of historical importance there are and stuff like that. So, anyways, they held on to that while they were working through that, but they sold some of the other property. One of them is this one down here labeled Ashby Construction. That was purchased by David Kelly, the owner of Ashby Construction. It's now called the Ash Street Commons. I believe he's putting his office space there, but that was purchased for $220,000. And up here, the old Ka-larks, I think it was a tumbling gym here in the yellow. That was also purchased by, I believe it was Scott Cotton at the time from 1890. I think he was going to do some print press type stuff in there. But now I believe it's owned by John Huff, who owns Yellowstone Garage, and it's called the Hall on Ash. It's a cool little venue. So if you're looking for an event, event venue, check it out. It's a new one in town. So that was sold for $300,500. So they got rid of both of those properties, this one and this one here, for about $500,000. They sent out an RFP for the remaining land, and they received two offers. Ashby Construction, again, offered to buy the livery stable, which is this area right here, and the south parking lot, which is right here. They offered to buy those parcels for $525,000, and the other bidder, Flag, offered to purchase both those properties for $585,000, in addition to the rest of the Plains Furniture property, for a total of $1 million is what they wanted to buy. So this yellow portion right here, the old, I apologize, they didn't want to purchase that. They wanted to purchase the livery stable, which is this red area right here, the south parking lot, and then all the yellow, which is the Plains Furniture, the old Nolan Chevrolet. So they put in a bid for $1 million. The appraisal of that amount of land was $1.4 million at the time. It's been reduced since then to $1.2 million because the livery stable was found to be uninhabitable. The structure there is, I think, not usable, so you'd have to demo it and completely build over again. So both proposals were rejected because they didn't meet or exceed the appraisal price, and that was a requirement of City Council regulations at the time. Since then, they voted to change those rules to allow for sale below appraisal price, just to get rid of the property, like to try to get back some of their money. So, during the second RFP process, Flag was the only bidder at $500,000. I think the reason the bid went down that time was because the first proposal for $1 million included a lot of concessions from the city to help them out with sewer, utility upgrade, landfill cost, the cost of construction. I think they were looking for the city to work with them on that. The city said, no, we can't offer those things. And so they came back with a lower bid that, I imagine through their economic analyses, they determined that's how much we can pay for the property with all the amount we're putting into it, which is $8 million is how much they're planning on investing in total. $500,000 is the price we could pay to still, make some sort of profit off this development. So they came back. Flag consists of Brandon Daigle, who served on the board of the DDA, the Downtown Development Authority, for 8 years until July of this year, and also Kevin Hawley, who's the current executive director of the DDA. They operate, the DDA, that is, operates and maintains David Street Station. They raised the money and created it, but the city actually owns David Street Station. So it's kind of a weird, that's why some people might think that people that at the DDA work for the city. It's a city-owned property, but the DDA is a completely separate entity. They're primarily funded through taxes on business owners downtown to promote economic activity downtown, kind of like the Visit Casper, Visitor and Convention Bureau does for the city of Casper as a whole. So, so some people thought this was a conflict of interest. They actually addressed this in page 37 of the City Council work packet in February. Again, I'll give you a link so you can look through the entire proposal and read this for yourself. But they argue that it's not a conflict of interest because DDA and its employees spent no time or financial resources on the research, development, or design. They received no special privileges. The bidding process was completely open to the public, and they didn't get any sort of, special privilege or preference in this deal. And I think right here is where they kind of try to describe why it is they created Flag, why, how this all came about. So a year ago, members of the DDA spent time, money, and energy to bring forward a proposal. It wasn't supported by City Council. They were asked to bring back other proposals. So they asked the city leadership if the property could be owned or developed by the DDA on behalf of the city. The answer was no. They had put out bids, and nobody wanted to develop that property. And so, I think Brandon and Kevin essentially said, screw it. The city won't the city won't develop it. We can't develop it at the DDA. A private developer won't develop it. We'll create a development firm and we'll develop it. It was, I think, in response to these consistent roadblocks being put in place. And so they decided, fine, we'll create our own development firm and we'll develop it ourselves. So their proposal is to build 18 market rate townhouses and row houses. You can see here, this is kind of across the street, like if you were standing in front of Metro Coffee, kind of. This is what you'd be looking at. This is their proposal. Here's another view looking straight at it from David Street. And then here's another one. So this is if you were over standing in front of Slumberland looking at it from the northwest. It's to your northwest. And then this would be if you're standing in the Goodstein parking lot is what it's called, right there across from Rocca's, where everyone parks to go to Rocca's and office and Gaslight Social. That's looking at it this way, and that's what they would, want it to look like. I believe the first story is intended to be office space, retail space, and then the top 2 stories living. So, it's really meant to attract those young professionals, those entrepreneurs that want to start a small business or run a small business. This gives them the opportunity to have close proximity, and, I think it's really attractive. I think it's cool. I think it's cutting edge and new, and I do think it'll attract and retain those young professionals that our state, the leadership in our state is constantly harping on. How do we get these people to stay and how do we attract them to our state? I think it's, this is one of the ideas, is to create housing and residential property that they would enjoy. So in July, hold up real quick. So the reason they want to do residential housing is because there's been a number of studies, the 2008 Old Yellowstone District Master Plan, the 2012 Downtown Strategic Plan, and the 2017 Generation Casper Comprehensive Plan. All of these studies identified a tremendous need for residential property in our downtown district. To encourage and sustain the growth going on down there, you need people living down there. And so that's why they want to do residential, because there's been a number of studies that have identified we need more housing downtown. So in July, the city entered into a memorandum of understanding with Flag to work towards the sale of the properties. So Flag, started doing some work in good faith that the sale would occur, because that's what it appeared to be working towards. The closing date for the sale got pushed from September 17th to October 22nd, and at the October 22nd City Council meeting, they failed to vote for the resolution on a 4-4 tie, with Steve Friel abstaining from the vote. I think they got a lot of pushback from people. I'll be forthright with you. I was one of them that said, the perception from many people was that this was working towards a sale, and so there wasn't any perceived threat that it would fall through. And so people like myself, a lot of other people that agree that this development would be a good idea, didn't reach out to their representatives and say, hey, keep working towards this because we want to see it. We thought it was essentially a done deal. So they voted to reconsider the vote at this upcoming November 5th City Council meeting to give it another vote. So they're reconsidering it. So Tuesday, November 5th, 6 o'clock, City Hall, they're going to have a meeting and they're going to vote, and they're going to either vote to accept the proposal, or they will let it fall to a tie or choose not to accept the proposal. And then I think at that point it's essentially dead in the water. So here's why I would encourage you to reach out to your representatives and or show up to the City Council meeting on Tuesday, because the bidding process was fair, completely open. Anyone could have made an offer. For the people saying this is some sort of honeypot or these guys are going to get super wealthy for getting this steal of a deal on the property, that's not the reality of the situation. And if there was an opportunity to get wealthy, I imagine there would have been a lot of other people putting in bids wanting to develop the property. With all the environmental remediation, the historic preservation, the utility upgrades, with all of the work, the demolition of the livery stable, with all the work that has to go into developing this property, the profit margins, I imagine, are very slim. So for the people saying that they're getting a steal on this, they're going to make money just all over the place, I don't believe that, because I think more people would have been interested. The second RFP process for the property, Flag was the only people to put in an offer. So, yeah, completely fair process in my mind. The city signed an MOU with them, and so I think it would look badly on our city representatives, and it would deter future investment if they decided to back out now after giving the impression that they supported the proposal. In the past decade, 3 studies have identified the need for residential housing downtown. This proposal not only preserves the historic Nolan Chevrolet that was found getting into the property, but it pays tribute to it. The development proposal is called the Nolan. So it kind of pays tribute to the Nolan Chevrolet, and it addresses the need for housing downtown. Some people have claimed that the city should send out a third RFP. I'm not necessarily opposed to that, but unless there was a complete lack of awareness for potential buyers out there during the first 2 RFP processes, I don't see any reason to think that a third bidding process will attract any new bidders. So I guess they could do that again, but again, just holding up the entire process. I don't see why somebody who wasn't interested before would suddenly be interested in the future with the state office building being built further down Midwest Avenue. This is the perfect time to create housing in that area. So if somebody wasn't interested now, I don't see any reason to believe they'd be interested a year or 2 from now, because this is the best time to be working down there. And then again, I acknowledge that the city is going to be taking a loss selling the property below the appraisal value, but every day that this property sits here looking ugly, boarded up, and vacant is another day that they're keeping from it being developed, from generating property and sales tax revenue. The gentleman over at Flag, they did an economic analysis and showed, how many millions of dollars this development would generate in property and sales taxes over the next few years. And even if they're way off those numbers, even if the numbers are half or a quarter of what they're saying, it's still going to offset the loss that the city is going to take from selling it below the appraisal value. So I don't think it's smart to sit on the property for 10 years or however long they're thinking, sit on it forever until somebody comes and offers them more money. I think it needs to be developed now so that it can start attracting further investment in our downtown area. It can get people living downtown so that we can explore the opportunity of building a grocery store and doing some of the other things that have been identified needs in the central Wyoming, central Casper area for a long time. So again, that's why I would encourage you to reach out to your city representatives to let them know you support this proposal. Show up to the city council meeting November 5th at 6 o'clock at City Hall. Sorry, these are some excerpts from some of the, this was just me showing you some excerpts from the 3 different plans showing the need for residential housing. I'll provide those citations if you want to read the plans yourselves. If you don't know who your city representatives are, this is a ward map you can find on the City of Casper website. This is Ward 2 over here, this is Ward 1 in the middle, and Ward 3 over here. If you live east of Beverly, you're definitely in Ward 3. If you live west of Poplar, you're most likely in Ward 2. But if you're somewhere in the middle, reference the ward map to see who your rep is. These are your representatives right here. Um, again, it would be great if everyone that's interested, that's passionate about this, that would like to see our downtown continue to change for the better, please show up to the city council meeting to show your support. It means a lot. But if not, please just send a quick phone call or an email to the representatives of your ward to let them know you support it. And yeah, so again, thank you all for your time. I tried keeping it as short as possible. I hope to see you at City Council meeting, and would love any feedback on whether you thought this silly little video was helpful or provided any education or information. Thanks, guys. Again, hope to see you there. Take it easy.